Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of We Ain't Dying for This, a Black woman's guide to liberation. My name is Crystle Johnson, and I am the founder and retreat host at Design Your Soft Life. If you are listening live, we would love to hear from you in the chat. Show us some love. Let us know where you're dialing in from, and also share this live with a Black woman that you think might be interested in this conversation about protecting my peace as liberation. And if you are watching the replay, let us know how this conversation resonated with you. So, before we jump into everything, I just want to share like a little bit of information before we talk to Liz, our special guest today, which is really about why it is that I started this series. So, there are a few reasons why I started this series. The first one is that Black women are literally dying because we are stressed, overwhelmed. And I know many of you have heard like the increase of Black women and girls committing suicide. That stat recently came out. So it's important for us to understand like how do we begin to control what we can control and let the rest be what it's going to be. That's real important. The second thing is that I want people to really see liberation as not a you're liberated or you're not, but I want people to understand the breadth of liberation. That liberation can look like protecting your peace. It can look like trauma recovery. It can be community. And of course, if you've been listening into these episodes since we started, then you've heard from a lot of different Black women who have shared what liberation means to them. And then finally, the last reason why I started this series is because I wanted to be able to feature Black women who have actually done the work and who can share their stories and inspire the rest of us to also seek our liberation in whatever way that looks like for us. So today, as I mentioned before, we'll be talking about protecting my peace with liberation. We have Liz here, who's going to be our guest in this conversation. And Liz, I want to give you the opportunity. Welcome to the show, girl. Uh, I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to those who are watching live or watching the replay.
My name is Liz Leiba. I am a 20-year higher education professional. I first got on LinkedIn in 2020 just to really network, and then ended up starting to post a lot about online learning because I work in higher education in online learning and course development. And then George Floyd was murdered, and I felt compelled to just start posting more about racial injustice and inequity and all the things that Black folk had been really thinking about, but not really talking about until George Floyd was murdered. And that led to me just doing a lot more advocacy work, both online as well as in like media, and then just writing a book about a lot of the things that I was learning when I was a podcast host for Ebony Media. They had like a short-lived podcast, and I was a host on there, and I was talking to so many Black people, and everyone was struggling with a lot of the toxic workplace culture, which I had no idea just how much of a bad problem that was until I just started talking to so many more people outside of higher ed. And that's just pretty much what brought me to where I am today, having written I'm Not Yelling about Black women navigating the workplace and some of the trauma and things that we have to do to strategize within ourselves, like what you said, focusing more on ourselves rather than the external environment. It's not going to change. And I think a lot of times when I said that in the very beginning, people felt like I was being reckless, or people thought that I was being negative or pessimistic. But the fact of the matter is that things are actually being rolled back. And that's just what has happened. It's historical. It's not something that I came up with on my own. We see this every time Black folk get ahead. There becomes a movement to pull us back because that's where they want us to be. It's like I think for some reason we have cognitive dissonance. Maybe it's Stockholm syndrome. I don't know a lot about psychology, but I do know a lot of times when people are victims of abuse, people start to normalize abuse. They start to make excuses for abuse. And that's what we've really been doing, especially since George Floyd. We've been saying, yeah, we got to meet them where they are. They don't understand. It's like my 2-year-old would understand.
Mhm.
My mom understands. Like people that haven't been to college understand. But we are asked telling me that people how went to elite schools, not only for college, but also grew up in the suburbs of America, don't understand it's wrong to discriminate against somebody based on the color of their skin. And I just wrote about that from the woman's perspective in the workplace and how we have been um, pretty much under attack, like you said. They're literally, this is a walking genocide, is what I call it. It's psychological warfare against Black women. They took their eye off of us while they were really mass incarcerating and separating Black men from our households. And when they looked around, we had become the most educated demographic in the country, and that's not what they want. So we're under attack. And I wanted to highlight that in I'm Not Yelling, and then turn around and think a little bit more about how do we heal from that trauma. Workplace trauma is real. I think a lot of there are I can't even count how many women in the past 6 weeks have told me they're on leave from their job because of mental health. It's become something where if a Black woman tells me she's not on leave from her job, I'm surprised, because there are so many people that are starting to say they are falling victim to this toxic workplace culture and cannot deal with that. Just like we saw with uh, um, Dr. Gay, Claudine Gay, being under attack, and just all the ramifications mental health wise that come out of that. So writing Protecting My Peace was my attempt to also explain not only the traumatic workplace environments and some of the things, strategies that we can use so we can really be armed mentally, but also to talk about the healing and talk about mental health issues. My own struggle with bipolar disorder, ADHD, and different things that are affecting us because of trauma, and how we should seek help, and how we can seek community healing, how we can really turn inwards as a community, not really necessarily have to fight those fights in corporate spaces. I take my hat off to people that can do it. But for me, I feel like my calling is to help people that look like me, because somebody said Black women have to save ourselves. Yeah, exactly. We're always called on to save the world. We are like the world's mom. And that's not just, hyperbole. That's just not an analogy. That's the reality. That is mitochondrial Eve, that we are the originator. Everybody has our DNA in their blood. And for some reason, it has translated into now you become the mule, which is what Zora Neale Hurston called us, the mule of the earth. And we don't want that. We deserve a soft life too. We deserve to have a normal work life balance too. But society has created this infantile structure where people in the majority don't want to compete on a level playing field. They're acting like my children, where they're mad because somebody else got the toy they don't, and they like, well, if I'm gonna smash it and break it if I can't have it. That's basically what we're seeing with the white population that do not want to compete fairly. They want to get the participation trophy, and they want Black women to dumb ourselves down. Sorry, baby, we don't do that. We come from excellence and always have. All the inventions you have sitting around your house, most of them come from us, if not Black men. And the problem is they have been conditioned to use, plagiarize, copy, manipulate, lie, anything they can do to get a step up. And Toni Morrison, I think, said it best, and I'll land my plane here. If I have to be on my knees so that you can feel tall, so that you can feel strong, so that you can be smart, all those things that they're telling us that supremacy means, then you have a problem. Something is wrong. And white mediocrity is the word of the day. Mediocrity. There is no meritocracy. There's no pull yourself up by the bootstraps. There is basically a whole cluster of people that have created, it is the matrix, it is whatever we want to call it, woke. Yes, we're woke because what's happening does not make sense. And I really wanted to keep banging the drum about that, because I think what's happening is we have been conditioned to see the world one way, and somehow it's just like being in an abusive relationship. The person keep telling you, I'm not cheating, I'm not cheating, I'm not cheating. And you're like, but wait, my homegirl just said she saw you with another girl. Maybe
Mhm.
mistaken. It's like you confusing me. This is what's been happening. We are in a traumatic relationship with our oppressor, and some of us out here making excuses. Oh, we need to do some more diversity training. No, baby, you ain't got to train me to love. You ain't got to train to love. If you can't love me right now, don't love me at all. I don't
Yeah.
want anything from you if you can't naturally, as a normal human being, have empathy. And that's what I wanted to talk about in the book. Not that we need to adjust how we feel about what's happening, or we got to go fix people that's broken. Your brokenness is not my
It is
responsibility.
not.
You
It
got my
is
own problems, honey. And I didn't start out with a leg up in society. And then that's the thing. Well, I had it rough too, but you didn't have black skin. That's really the big differentiator. Somebody asked me, Jerry Wad, right after I met up with you at South by Southwest in Austin, at Jerry Wan's summit, somebody said they had a little card game where you pull out cards and you ask somebody a question about their life. And the question was, where did my name come from? And I said, my mom picked Elizabeth because Elizabeth was the widest name she could think of. So she wanted, at that time, you would have had to go fill out a job application. They
Mhm.
had no computers back then. So she wanted to make sure if I go fill out the application, they wouldn't be able to know I was black. So that's the kind of stuff that we have to deal with and know. Somebody just posted about that on LinkedIn. White names get called back more than any
Yeah.
other name. Really? So you mean to say Chad and Brad and Tanning and Cooper? Another one. Any of those names, how do you get the call back? And it's just
Yeah.
we know what it is. We understand what it is. I think what's happened though is we've been trained to lie because we're scared. It's still that same hangman noose. It's the lynching. It's the policing of black bodies, which makes us say we cannot reveal to them that we know that this is just a facade, and that is so horrible. That is like the worst of any kind of abuse where you have to tiptoe around your abuser because you don't want to get hurt. And I wanted to talk about those things. It's like you see that once I get started talking about them, I can't stop because I want to scream that from the rooftop so black folk we can wake up and really start treating ourselves the way that we deserve to be treated. We are
Mhm.
royalty. We are kings and queens, and they would not even have came out of the dark ages if not for us. I mean, that's not me being mean. That's just history books will tell you. Open up the history book, but now they're trying to ban the history book. So we won't even know our own greatness. And a lot of us don't because we've been brainwashed to believe that we got to
Yeah.
beg people, please, sir, can I have some equal opportunity? Get out of here.
Girl.
Trying me to, I got to come and beg you when I'm better than you. I'm going to beg you for equal opportunity. I come up and step on your neck since you like to step on other people's neck so bad, but that they don't want. So that's where we're seeing all the rollback of women's autonomy over their own body. Now they're saying you got to have a baby if you were molested, raped, whatever. It don't matter. We in the handmaid tale right now, where they
That
are literally trying to bring us back to pre-Civil War era, and people standing by and watching us go in, walking into this oppression on autopilot. Thank you, Shanela. I'm sitting here trying to scratch my brain to think of what can I call this oppression on autopilot. And we just all in the back, like, I don't really like where we going, but I don't want to say that. I don't want the driver to get mad and kick me out. Honey, you already on the side of the road. They done took off, took all the money. Capitalism has us on this thing where we really believe it's normal not to have health care. We got to beg the president to forgive our student loan when student loan is school shouldn't even cost no money. You talk about we have to pay the government so that we can go get education, so that we can be a product of society and make everything function. Doctor, lawyer, and we got to pay you for that.
right.
It's like we sit here like Boo Boo the Fool, people telling us some stuff that would never fly anywhere, but somehow we have managed to take something that is despicable and say, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna make a whole society over here where the top 1% of the country, they living on a yacht that's like the size of a damn city block. And it's like Tupac said, why do you need 50 bedrooms? Can you have like 5 bedroom? And there's people out here hungry, and people thought that man was crazy. But that is the truth.
Ew.
We are Jessica Farm. Thank you, ma'am. My girl, she always come through because we are living in some simulation. This is not real life. Like the way that people are acting, upholding this, sitting here, is this a genocide? I've seen more dead babies in the past 6 months than I have ever even imagined in my worst nightmare. And people are still questioning, and the government in debt. They got nothing to back it up because guess where all the riches is that back it up? Our homeland that they stole us from in the biggest human trafficking ring of the world. It kills me when people say sex trafficking. Y'all better not forget that's still alive. Yeah, we know. We're the product of it. Hello. So there's so much. I think that and you see that you got me started on a rampage because it's so much that's wrong, and I think that's another reason why I stay talking on social media. I'm like, this is bad for my mental health. I need some time off. And then the next thing something happened, I'm like, So they just gonna attack Angel Reese. Isn't that what that's some foolishness right there? It's like there's always something that they're doing that makes absolutely no sense, and then asking us to go along with it. And poor Geneva, talk about I put my nickname on my initials on my resume. See, that is they've normalized the fact that Eurocentrism, whether it's in the way you look, the way
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
talk, the way you dress, the way you act, corny has become that's what you got to be professional. I got to be chuckling at some jokes that I don't find funny. I got to be telling people my business. Oh, what did you do over the weekend? None of your business. But they've Jessica posts about it all the time. This phony, we are a family and all this stuff until I get laid off, till you fire me. Then we're not a family no more. Can I get in my email so I could get my documents? So it's just a lot wrong with going on. And like Diane said, Diane, I'm with you. It is exhausting, but the train that left the station and we all just watching it while we all sit around and talk about, wow, this is messed up. Like Jennifer say, this is a simulation. But we all got the controller. Somebody, our little nephew that ran off with the controller.
I
Yeah.
cannot. The truth is so loud. It's so loud.
White supremacy. That's what professionalism is. Stay in your corner, especially for black women, because you know we like to mind everybody business. That's not gonna work because we have a very strict budget on that. There's a timeline. I need to make sure the agenda's together. If you don't fit your it's like we cannot do anything right for them because for us to be right, we would have to be what we have always been in their eyes, which is subservient, which is what
Mm.
has been normalized for white women in this country. Because if my husband is coming from home from the Supreme Court talking about he banned abortion, what? Like, why would you vote for that? But there's almost this sense that this patriarchy it works from infantilizing white women that the majority of them voted for Donald Trump, so you have women that are basically helping in their own oppression and then also turning around and hurting us because the majority of us are being hurt by these same women and these same men. It's kind of this self-professing or self-fulfilling thing where everyone is acting like it's not going along, but or not happening, but the next generation is being trained to do the same thing. And I think what's happening now is you have this last gasp and Dave Chappelle talked about it when they little clutches, their hands is gripping on for dear life as Gen
Yeah.
X comes up the pipeline with all their social media ruckus. And it's like they're so running scared from that you have these old 80-something-year-old people, they will drop dead on Congress floor before they give up a seat of power to a young black person or somebody from, the Muslim faith or anything else. They vote against our own interests. We as black folk, we're very logical. We about so emotionally intelligent. Because if really we spoke our mind and told them what we want to tell them and act like we really want to act, they would really have something to talk about. Because we are so patient to be able to deal with this kind of stuff. And it's just total foolishness every time you turn around. And you have people in the majority that continue, like Lanisha said, to vote against our own interests. But at the end of the day, voting, honestly, in my opinion, really doesn't make a difference because you have the people at the very pinnacle of power that are beholden to nobody but the almighty dollar. So we can vote all we want, but now what's happening is they see that that's our power in a sense. So now they're redistricting, they're gerrymandering, they're passing all these restrictive voting laws. They're trying to do everything in their power to make sure we have no say so in how this country is run. And if you can have your way at the polls, what's happening is the federal courts are being stacked. The Supreme Court is already stacked, which means that women are losing left and right. We're losing in terms of affirmative action, in terms of any kind of safeguards that our ancestors had to fight tooth and nail for. They didn't count on the fact that these people don't respect their own laws. They don't respect international law. You have a country that's supposedly the world police and the moral bastion for the whole globe voting against genocide and actually supplying bombs to the people blowing up women, children, and civilians and saying we can't quantify that that's happening. And we're like, oh, we can quantify it just from a quick scroll on TikTok. And they're telling us that's not what we see and don't believe our lying eyes. They are not the allies of Black women. They never have been and they never will be. And it's tough to tell them that because they want to say, I'm one of the good ones. Hey, like Muhammad Ali said, if it's a whole bunch of snakes coming down this aisle right here, if I'm in this theater, I can't keep it open for the one good one. I don't know who gonna bite me. Sorry, I got to close the door for everybody. And that's why I don't want that allyship. I'm sorry. I can't read your mind. It's hard enough trying to deal with Black folk that have internalized racism and want to hurt you.
Mhm.
So I damn sure if you don't look like me, God damn sure not gonna give you a chance to hurt me. Unfortunately, it's self-preservation at this point. No one is coming to save us. Somebody said that earlier. We have to save ourselves with plain talk. Like Diane said, we have to take care of our mental health because this will do a number on you. I remember the one morning, or it was early in the morning, probably 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I said, wait a second, this DEI thing, I think this is a scam. And I felt so hoodwinked because I said, I'm from the hood. I'm from the east side of Fort Lauderdale. I don't like to be tricked. I don't like to be played out. I don't like, yeah, I don't like any of this stuff where I feel like somebody kind of made me feel like they was gonna do right, but they did 100% wrong. And that's really what Black folk have been doing, giving the benefit of the doubt over and over and over again. They gonna get it, they gonna get it, they not that too sharp, but we can pull them along. You got to be silly or something wrong with you for you to go contract somebody $50,000 to come into your organization to tutor you on how not to say that somebody named Keisha and somebody named Elizabeth is just as competent and aware and able to do their job. You telling me you're not slow? If you need me to come in and explain that to you, explain, but they don't want it to be explained to them because it makes money
Yeah.
doing it the way that it is. It makes money to make sure you have a lower class and one class of people maintains that grip on all the wealth, all the power. And if they want to fix it, the same way AI done blew up, I can't even type nothing without AI trying to type it for me. The same way, the same energy and money they got for that, they won't put that in a reparation for Black people. They don't want Black people to have reparation. They won't put that into hiring Black people. They just don't want to hire Black people. We see that now. Our unemployment rate is going, we are more unemployed.
Mhm.
Everyone's saying unemployment going down. Not for Black people, it's not. So that lets you know they have no intention of doing anything other than continuing what they've been doing. And it ain't like one person. Don't ask me how to be an ally because one person can't fix this. You all got to go into your own house and go fix your own stuff. A white woman asked Malcolm X, "What can he do? What can she do?" And he said, "Nothing. Go talk to your own people. Don't come asking me nothing about what you can do." And that's my thought process too. You shouldn't be asking me nothing. Go figure it out. This is nothing to do with me. This is y'all's problem. Y'all psychosis. We're living along aside psychopaths, and the psychopaths talking about how I stop killing, how I stop tutoring on how to stop killing. Don't kill. I don't discriminate against people based on what they look like. I give everybody a shot. So I can't tell you how to stop discriminating because I've never done it. So don't come to me asking me about how to stop doing it. I don't know how to stop being pathological. I go to my therapist and I make sure I try not to hurt people if I do rage against them because I got my bipolar. I take my meds. I'm not sitting here trying to not take accountability for what I do, but you have a whole group of people that are the leaders of our country that telling me like a toddler they can't control themselves when they see a germane. They can't, oh, if it's unconscious, I can't stop myself. You're not a zombie. You are awake. And it's not unconscious bias. That is ridiculous. It is just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And like somebody said, boo boo the fool, we are over it. Thank you, Denise. It doesn't make sense because when somebody say I'm your ally, whoop de whoop whoop for you. Thank you for that. Like, how does that change my quality of life? And this it take time and all this stuff. James Baldwin said it. Got his book sitting right here. He said he's been waiting 60 years. How much longer do I need for
Yeah.
your progress? How much longer? And when did he say that? That was an interview that was in like the 1980s, one of his last interviews when he was old. We gonna still keep waiting when our ancestors done told us again and again these people are not trying to change. And it's not us being mean, it's not us being racist. Now they're saying we the racists. Think about that. We were in shackle slavery like animals, bred, lynched, maimed, kill, said we have drapetomania if we want to run away and try to be free and have our own autonomy. And now they're saying we the racists. We want organizations that will fight for our rights so we can get to the finish line. It'll take us 300 years just to get to the blocks. And they're like three generations ahead of us. But we, the racists, that you know, that's a pathology. Some psychopathic. That's like that Jeffrey Dahmer stuff. Now you're gonna say it was my fault that I wandered into that bar and just you roofed me and brought me home and made me into a sandwich. Now I'm mad. I'm bad because I'm homosexual, but that's what they did. They vilified them young
Mhm.
men and tried to make it like, well, that poor white boy, what was he supposed to do? It wasn't his fault. This is the pathology that we're talking about. We're talking about people that will infantilize their own and say that child had mental health issues, shot up to school, but God forbid one of our kids have a pack of Skittles and try to fight off somebody that's stalking them in the middle of the night. That person deserves to get shot. What was he trying to fight back? These
Mhm.
things are not going to change. They're generationally embedded, and I don't think there's any way for us to get around the fact that we are living in a time where if we don't start to focus on our mental health, that's really the crux of protecting my peace. We have to do for ourselves. We cannot rely on other people to think about why we need to be emotionally stable, have our mental health prioritized, not be discriminated against, and be in toxic work environments. And every single health indicator, emotional well being, financial well being, we're at that bottom of all of those. And we have to get the mental health support, the community support to speak about about this with each other. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. This is really the crux of all of this. We have to as a people, we we need to lean back on the strength that we know that we have. And I think we forgot who we are. They have indoctrinated us so bad. When I think about protecting my peace, that's why I said ancestral power. It's the idea of embracing inner beauty. We have always been beautiful. Our beauty radiates from within and out. And our ancestral power really relates to the fact that we are the children of the slaves they could not kill. They could not kill us. And there's the reason why we're here. So I want to be the voice for those ancestors that went through tremendous struggle. So we right now can be here. They had to be so strong. Millions of them died. 12 million people captured and bred and humiliated and disgraced, and the depravity of the things that they had to endure, the things that we can't even think about, we probably couldn't deal with it for one day. So, in order for us, I think, to repay them for their sacrifice, it's really important for us to continue talking about just how much has happened and how much we need to stop relying on somebody else to fix that for us. But we need to instead focus on ourselves as a community, getting well, focusing on mental health, getting rest, empowering each other, supporting each other, amplifying each other. There's so many things that we need to do. This type of environment where I feel able to tap into that wisdom, I feel like it's the best thing that we can have because it's something that it's so immensely powerful, which is why they're trying to destroy it. So the conversations that we need to have will hold that space for that. Will acknowledge that that's what we need. Will really amplify and support and nurture these environments where we know we have been through a lot. I think we've been taught to say, "Oh, it's nothing. We're just as good. Let's just be excellent." I don't want to have to always be excellent, and I think that's really why protecting my peace. That message. I had so many people at the top levels of their industry that were so burnt out, and I just wanted to communicate this idea that our ancestors would not have wanted that. They wanted excellence, but not at the the sacrifice of who we are as a people, not at the sacrifice of our mental health and our well-being. Everything that they wanted for us was just the best. And I think by turning inward, we can start to really heal ourselves as a community and really focus on. I mean, we come from a legacy of being reliant on each other, organizing amongst each other, creating grassroots movements and organizational change. But that change really has not come from within the white majority organizations because they're not looking for change. So we need to turn into our own communities and make sure we focus on what change looks like for us. What does a real world look like for us if not for this disruption? And Toni Morrison talked about that too. If they had never interrupted us and they weren't around, what would the world look like? And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for peace. And if peace for me means that I have to turn inward to people that look like me and understand me, then that's really what I'm preparing to do in this new season. It's really why I wrote Protecting My Peace. It's really why I continue to focus on spaces where I can uplift and empower and really understand and try to hold space for other women that look like me, because this is counterproductive. Geneva said that. If that's what success looks like, stabbing other Black women in the back, or
Mm.
constantly being under stress, or focusing on how to chase that next accomplishment. And when you bring it in hand, someone's like, "Oh, great, go get another accomplishment." And like Jessica said earlier, the goalpost keeps moving. A lot of us have checked out from that, and our goal really now is to focus on healing ourselves. And that's really my biggest message. Heal yourself, sis. Like that's number one. You're the prize. Heal yourself.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely do have the responsibility to save ourselves first before we can do anything else. And what's interesting about everything that you've said is like there's so many things happening around us. The world is on fire. It's always something happening. We're never going to be able to fix it all. And I think that when I burnt out in 2020, that was kind of the mindset that I had where I said to myself, I'm never going to be able to solve anti-Blackness in my lifetime. I'm never going to be able to solve racism. Yes, I can have conversations. I can do the work. I can do my best and I can show up every day. But what I've always said, when I think about this work, I always say to myself, if they wanted to, they would. And you compared it to a relationship, like a toxic relationship. If that man wanted to, he would.
Not that
And
hard.
and that's exactly how I think about it. So we have to turn inwards to say, what is it that I can do to support myself to make sure that I am well? Which is
That
why when I think about design your soft life and I think about protecting my peace, so many people get confused about what does soft life mean? What does protecting my peace mean? And a lot of people think that if you have a soft life or if you're protecting your peace, you're somehow giving away your power. And it's not about giving away your power, it's about standing in your power. It's about standing on business.
thank you. Is resistance. I'm gonna argue Audre Lorde and say Audre Lorde didn't know what she's talking about. They brought us here to work. The idea that they tricked us into doing something that we did for 250 years for free, and now they're like, but work some more. And actually, no, actually work twice as hard, and I'm gonna pay you 58 cents on the dollar. Doesn't that sound wonderful? And we're like, yeah, because when I get in here, I know you're going to give me that dollar. Wah, wah. You go for that performance review. It's all the reasons why it's not in budget. Honey, this playbook is as old as time. It's all this mind manipulation. If anyone has been in a relationship with a narcissist, this is what it is. Up is down is up. You question yourself, am I not good enough? No, this is a hobo. This hobo just wants to live off you, and that's what this is. You have
Yeah.
mediocre. Jen said it earlier. Jennifer said it earlier. Mediocre people that was too lazy to make their own country and pull who not the laziest, not the subhuman, because a subhuman. I just was in DC the other day. A subhuman can't carve that intricate carving in them buildings. Who they think made that? George Washington? No,
Mhm.
honey. The only thing he made was teeth, and the teeth was slave teeth. They talk about the man
Yeah.
teeth was made of wood. No, they was not. These people were some savages. They didn't send their best and their brightest here. They sent the dregs of society. Let them tell you whatever they want to tell you, honey. When sent these people here, these people start cannibalizing their own selves. They could not make it here, hon. That's why they had to go to Africa and get us, because we knew how to group everything. We already had civilization. We had all of our infrastructure. They still trying to figure out how the things got built over there and all these places. Now they say aliens did it. If it's aliens, the aliens look like us.
Oh my
It's
God.
it is what it is.
It's
There's
all just laughable. It's all just laughable, but I had a question for you. There are so many people that are stuck in the cycle of their trauma. They
Yes.
are stuck in the cycle of their suffering.
Yeah.
How do you recommend that people kind of flip that switch to say, you know what? I'm not trying to solve something that I'm never going to solve. I'm not trying to fix something that I didn't cause. And again, if they wanted to, they would. So, what is the purpose of running on this hamster wheel when nothing is going to change? Again, always do your best, but it should not come at the expense of who you are, your mental health, your identity, etc. So what would you say to someone who is stuck in this cycle of trauma and needs to get out?
That is such a good question. I'm healing from domestic violence, emotional abuse, narcissistic, toxic type of relationship. And one of the things, first of all, was therapy and really making sure I got diagnosed to see what was going on. Because I knew I was suffering from trauma. I think the sad thing about mental health is it's different from if I fell down the stairs and broke my leg. It's like, okay, you need to get in your cast, you got X amount of time to heal. But because you say mental health and people say that, okay, it's an internal, there's brain chemistry, there's trauma that's involved, sometimes there's childhood things that's involved. People almost look at it like it's not as serious when actually in a lot of ways it is more serious.
Yeah.
So I think for me, the biggest advice I would tell people is to think about therapy, to think about if you're having these things that you really want to talk through and you really want to unpack not just the diagnosis aspect of it, but also strategies that will help you to be able to manage your life. I think with ruminating and kind of trying to do stuff and not giving up and staying on that cycle of trauma, a lot of that is a trauma response. You know, you're on this hamster wheel, and exactly, you can't heal because every time you turn around something else is getting thrown at you, and that's a part of what happens in these toxic work environments and just in the world. Every time Black women are turning around, it's like the other shoe drops, and then you're in this constant state of trying to recover from that trauma. I think the best thing to do is to recognize it. You have to really recognize and call a thing a thing. So you have to acknowledge what you're going through, get the support that you need. For me, that has been therapy and just being really, really consistent with coming up with strategies to manage my triggers differently, to manage my emotional regulation, to really think about like when you're one of the things that was really important to me was boundaries. I think with Black women, a lot of times we have a hard time saying no. So a lot of times we're on this keep trying to help people, keep trying to save people, keep trying to do better. And we don't put a boundary and say, okay, I'm not going to accept that anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore. A lot of times we don't necessarily hold people accountable. And one of the things I learned was like the rules are for the other people, the boundary is for me. So the rule, if they want to break the rule, don't want to listen to my rule, don't care nothing about my rule, or they can abide by it, whatever. I don't really care what you do. That boundary, that non-negotiable, these are the things that are on that list. And I'm not deviating from that. And up until this week, this past week, I've been working on it because I'm that kind of person. I'm a people pleaser. And a lot of times I am always thinking the best of someone. I hate the thing. So then that's where you get in this cycle of trauma because you constantly letting somebody abuse you. So you
Mhm.
can't heal. Like somebody said, you got to get out of that space. If someone keep hitting you upside the head, I mean, at some point, enough is enough, that cycle. And a lot of times it's not physical, it's emotional. It can be on the job, it can be family, it could be people that look like you, it could be people that don't look like you, unrealistic expectations. I think it's really on us to enforce what we will accept and what we won't accept, which is why I'm a big proponent of like, for example, if in the workplace, if there's a microaggression, I address it right then and there. I'm not waiting until in a meeting later where you'd be like, oh, I misinterpreted what you did. No, I don't. I'm stopping just the same way I would in my classroom because I don't accept it from 18-year-olds. I'm stopping in that moment and no, this is just what it is. I think what we also do, we've kind of indoctrinated people to treat us a certain way because Black women, again, very tolerant. A lot of times we accept a lot of things because we just have, I think, the ability to balance our emotional intelligence and our just IQ, our
I
intelligence.
I don't know, Liz. I think we don't want to be called the angry Black woman. We don't want
Don't.
to be like,
Yes.
because I feel like, yes, we're able to like be reserved. However, we like boiling over
In,
inside.
oh,
So
yeah.
like I think about that interview with James Baldwin and God, who was it? Toni Morrison?
Nick Giovanni.
Nikki Giovanni, yes. Sorry, that was terrible. Um, when she talked about like him smiling in the face of the boss all day and then coming home and like blowing up on her. And
Yes.
that's exactly what it is that we do. Like we hold it in and it's killing us from the inside out and we don't even realize it. And then we like boil over
Well,
later.
think about that as a trauma response. And I guess, and I
Yeah.
shouldn't say emotional intelligence in the sense that it's something good that we should be able to tolerate it. But in a sense, that's generational trauma too. We're coming from 2 or 3 generations ago where somebody made you mad on your job. That could be your life. You bet have a smile on your face because if that person feel like you took it some kind of way, you could be hanging from a tree by the end of the night and you're not going to see your family. So I think there is a sense that we know that that angry black woman stereotype, the strong black woman, the Jezebel, the Sapphire, the Mammy, it's just like they want us to take care of everything. We are not your mom, but they have been infantilized so much by their own mothers. These women are raising. I like to call white women out because y'all want to be say y'all are allies. So let me call you in here. Y'all the one raising these shooters. Y'all the one raising the men that are rolling back women's rights. Y'all married to them? That's your brother. I wouldn't be at dinner. Y'all hear what they saying about us. And I posted something on LinkedIn the other day. I said, have you ever heard that black people are lazy? Because we've been called lazy since we stopped working for free. And yet it was
Yeah.
like 300 or something responses. And a lot of people had grown up hearing that black people were lazy. And I was like, wow, what a shock. Is that why we're not getting hired or promoted? Because you've been taught from the time that you were 5 that black people are lazy.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter unless you make a conscious effort. If every day I'm around you, Crystal, and I'm like, Crystal, you're beautiful. Crystal, you're beautiful. Crystal, you're beautiful. And I pounded that into your brain, girl, you're going to be looking in the mirror and you're going to be like, I am royalty because you're being fed that and everyone around you. Do you think Rihanna don't think she's beautiful? Everybody telling her she's beautiful. She is beautiful, but you feel that. That's something that has been indoctrinated in you because everybody is reinforcing that. So that would give you
Yeah.
positive self-esteem if I was doing that for you. But
Mhm.
the opposite of that is somebody getting up every day and saying, you're trash, you're nothing, you suck, you're never going to be anything. That's what they have done to us. And they also have done that amongst themselves, telling each other that is what we are, which is why you have a young man getting shot 96 times. I don't care if he did shoot, you're to riddle his bullet with 90, his body with 96 bullets.
Yeah.
That's called hatred. That's called you're not a human. You're just an animal for me to put down. Because if somebody shot a pit bull 96 times after they bit somebody, I guarantee Peter would have been up there protesting. If I shot a dog came on my property right now and tried to bite my child and I shoot that dog 96 times, you don't think they're going to pat me on the news? They will. So that's how they look at us. We're not looked at as something that is to be respected, to be treated fairly. We got to fight them to treat us fairly. I got to fight you to treat me fairly. I don't care to fight that fight because to me that's nonsensical. So I'm not going to Jay-Z said that if you start to argue with a fool, people are not going to know who the fool is. And I'm not going to argue with people telling me I'm not as good as them or they need me to take them by the hand and explain to them why they feel like a black person's a drug dealer or a thug. That sounds silly. That's like me saying all white people are a redneck because I saw that on TV. Like, does that make any sense? But they've saturated the news and the media and education and everything else with what black folk are. And then that becomes it. Words become things. That's just what it is. Somebody asked what Nikki Giovanni was, and the Nikki Giovanni was an interview with Nikki Giovanni and James Baldwin. They were really close friends. And Nikki Giovanni was talking about how unfair it is for black women because the man comes home and he takes out his frustration on her because he has to expend so much energy just trying to survive in a racist society. So that was their conversation because they were close friends and they were just talking about the pain of the black community. Our men have been taken from us, not because they were deadbeat dads. Everybody has a deadbeat dad story. I have one too, but that's not what happened. Historically, that
Mhm.
is not what happened. What happened is they made a concerted effort, psychological warfare against black folk in our communities. They didn't say, "Oh, you free now. Go in peace. Here's some things to get started with, like we would when we send our kids to college." They sent us out there. Then they say, "If you loitering, we are arresting you." but you won't hire me. So now go back to the plantation, and now he don't even have to feed you because you're his employee, and he's going to give you 5 cents per bushel that you pick. That's what our ancestors had to deal with. And from then on, not being able to join unions, not being able to get a loan, not being able to get paid fairly, every single thing, our babies being born and not being taken care of, us having the lowest healthcare outcomes of all, us having the least wealth. Our household wealth is 27,000. White household wealth is like 100 and something thousand. Our businesses don't make as much. Our communities are underfunded and under resourced. Infrastructure is bad. Our education in our communities is underfunded because it's based on taxpayer dollars, which are in our property tax. So literally everything is set up. Our communities are policed more. There really isn't anything where we say Black folk are exceeding, maybe other than in sports and entertainment, but then they own that. So we literally have become enslaved. That we're free, but everything that we do, basically, it goes back into the pockets of the people at the top of the hierarchy, because that's
Mm.
what it's designed to do. I always tell people, why leave England, and they ain't send the best and brightest, and you came here to make another monarchy. Their monarchy is big corporate. That's literally what we don't. What does America? What do we export? Guns. What is our crops that we export? We don't export nothing. The only thing we export is chaos. We are a country of the military industrial complex. So what we do is we go all around the world, dipping and dapping in people business, setting up our bases, and then telling these countries how to run their own stuff so we can steal their resources. Just like in Africa, just like in the Middle East, quote unquote. It's not the Middle East. Even the language that's used to explain a lot of what's happening around the world is just a big lie. And the the young boys, that school to prison pipeline is so real. The young girls, our girls are adultified. They're they're expelled, suspended at higher rates, just like our boys are. That school to prison pipeline starts very early. They're, like I said, that they're suspended more. they they're not treated the same. Like with white kids, they get an IEP, and this is something I've seen working in K through 12. White kids get an IEP, Black kids go into the office, and that starts from a young age.
Mhm.
So there's a lot that we need to unlearn. We have to unlearn that individually. There's white people that, hey, you're very nice, but as a collective, just like Muhammad Ali said, when all y'all get together, you know that you benefit from this too. You're not giving it up, and it's not fair. It's not fair for us either, but we got to deal with it. So if something's going to be unfair and you're just reaping the benefit, then I really go reap the benefit. For me, I feel as though unless white America, which is not going to happen, we're willing to undo what has been done, there really isn't any point for allyship. Really, what needs to happen is we need to turn inward in our communities and help ourselves. We need to focus on our own mental health and our own healing. And a lot of why I wrote the books is because I'm a very plain talker. I think because as well, I'm not from here. I was born in UK, but raised in Fort Lauderdale from when I was young. So I always look at it like this is weird. Like why is pharmaceuticals advertised on television? You need that. So you shouldn't need an advertisement. You just go get your pharmaceutical. But that's a big business too. There's money in healthcare. There's money in keeping us sick. That's
Keeping us.
why
Yeah.
why Black women now we got to sue for the relaxers that they had us putting chemicals that cause cancer on our hair, and a lot of us. I have had fibroids. I have them again. I just do not want to go under the knife again, but I've had them out one time already. It's very few Black people that you meet that don't know somebody that's had fibroids, because you have a whole country that does not care. And when we talk about the Tuskegee experiment, we make it seem like that's one thing. We got places now where Flint, Michigan, they still got clean water. You got everything is basically it's it's profit over people. That's literally what this country is about. And if you have the people with the least power, which economically we spend a lot, but we don't spend it in our own communities, and that's psychological as well, even the way that we spend. But if we don't, and it is sick care, you're absolutely right. It pays for you to be sick. It don't pay for you to be well. So they want you to be sick. So continuing on that road of trusting people, that to Not even two generations ago. Because what did we just see Jerry Rice standing in the front of the university when they were trying to let the black children come to school? Jerry
Mhm.
Rice is about a granddaddy age. It's people in Congress right now that is older than what Emmett Till would have been today. Because Emmett Till, my dad is the same age. My dad is 81.
Mm.
So we need to start to think outside the box. They don't like creative people. They don't like people that think for themselves. They want you to not be woke, because when you woke, you look at all this stuff and you like none of this stuff makes sense. And it's a hard blow to your system because you like, so that just been doing all this for nothing. It could be for nothing, it could be for something, because now that you know how you're gonna behave different, are you still gonna keep chasing them trinkets that they giving you down there at the job? Don't care nothing about no job. I care about my mental health. I care about traveling. I'm about to go to Cancun next week. I don't care nothing about how to prop up a system that was designed to hurt me. And it
Yes.
has not changed. It's going right back. So people's like, we gotten better, but then they drag us right back. So all the people talking best to me last year, Liz, stop being so negative. It's going in the right direction. It's not going in the right direction. If you still think it's going in the right direction, something wrong with you. I'm not going in that direction with y'all, because that direction basically means that we have to go back to how things were before the civil rights movement, because that's where they trying to bring us. And I'm not trying to go there. So we
Yeah.
got to wake up and start being real with ourselves and stop. Like, it's like with a child, you know how kids still want to believe in Santa Claus. My parents used to tell us, we bought them toys. There's no such thing as Santa Claus. Bust our bubble real quick. No, you ain't gonna be thanking the Santa Claus. Thank us.
Exactly. I worked hard for that.
I work hard for that. We got to start getting like that. We got to stop believing these silly fairy tales that they've been telling us. I told my friend today, I said, Opa Loompa, I grew up in the UK, so Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, that was like one of my first movies. I said, you
Mhm.
know what? The other day, I did not know this. I probably did, but forgot. The other day, I noticed that there was an article, a blog post talking about the Oompa Loompa was actually in the original book was black people, some African people that he took from Africa and brought them to his chocolate factory to work because they love chocolate.
No, have you seen the new one? I
No.
watched the new one on the plane, and the storyline wasn't that, but it was good. I liked it. But now that you're saying they were originally black, now I'm like,
It's a lot of things like that
oh,
whole Disney thing. It's a lot of things that when you look back at how things were. I remember watching like oh my gosh, Bugs Bunny, and his owner was this black woman, not Tom. Like this real caricature of a black lady with some house slippers, all this stuff. There's a lot of things that we used to watch and see
mhm,
that we don't realize just how indoctrinated these
yes,
caricatures, the mammy. Oh, it's harmless. If it's harmless, why y'all took Aunt Jemima off the thing? Y'all know y'all don't need to have no Aunt Jemima on there. Those are remnants of what things used to be. And those things, like the Confederate flag and a lot of these their inability to accept that a black character does not mean that we want everybody in the world to be black, even though the majority of us are. But you can have a black character. It's the same way we have white characters, but
yeah.
we
Especially the fictional characters that aren't real.
exactly, child. But look at them, especially the fictional characters. But they done made Jesus white. They made everybody. Genghis Khan is white. Everybody. Shogun is white. It's just this whole idea of wanting to be in this dominant hierarchy. And that's a part of human nature. But I think what makes it so perverse and I think so unpalatable for us now that we have access to too much information. And maybe at one point back in the ancient civilizations, people would accept the idea that, well, I'm just supposed to be at the bottom of this hierarchy and that's just my lot in life. No,
Yeah,
we're not doing that.
and that's why they're trying to get rid of it. It's too much
Exactly.
knowledge, too much
Exactly.
information.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, and they don't want people to apply that knowledge. Knowledge alone is not anything other than I know that. If I start acting on it, then
Yes.
that becomes a problem. And it goes to the heart of everything that they do. Everything they do is about misinformation. It's about how much they can confuse stuff so you don't see really what's going on. It's almost like those magicians or card con man that it's all the trickery, and then it's like, oh, so now this is what's happening, and it happens with pretty much everything. And I think we tend to get distracted because again, we want to see the best. We want to see progress. We want to see ourselves treated the way that we know we should be treated. But back to the relationship again, it doesn't matter how much you tell that man, I'm the best. You know, why don't you love me? Just stop doing that. They're not gonna. If they
Yeah.
wanted to, they would. They would have never started doing
Period.
that.
Good.
So
You got to focus on what you can control, because if you don't focus on what you can control, like we've talked about like so many things in just this short time that we've been together that we can't control. Yes, it bothers us. Yes, it drives us wild. However, if they wanted to fix it, they would. So we have to spend time like working on like what is going to make me happy? Who am I? What is the next step for me? And
yeah,
one of the episodes that I want to have, because I think this is also something that's happening right now too, is that there is a Blaxit or a exodus from the US, and Black folks, particularly Black women, are just leaving.
yes.
And I really want to have a conversation about that with someone who has actually gotten up and left.
You know who lives outside the country? I want to say, oh my gosh, the first person that comes to mind for me would be Trina Casey because she lives um I want to feel like Mauritius. I know she's off the coast of Africa somewhere. It's a lot of sisters that are moving to Mexico. It's a lot of sisters that are moving to like would say Colombia, got
Yeah.
Cartagena, places like that. I mean, I feel a lot of people are just getting tired of this, what America has crapped up to be like this American dream. It's a nightmare in a lot of ways for Black people. And the idea that we should be grateful when we're the victims of the legacy of human trafficking. And it's not just Black Americans. I think sometimes we get it twisted and people say, well, Jamaicans, y'all kind of different. We're all the same. We all are a boat stop apart. So if you Dominican and Black, they've managed to do a good job of self-hatred. So we try to separate ourselves out. But at the end of the day, we're none of us are from here. So it makes a lot more sense for us to be thinking about where we can go elsewhere. I really want to hear you have that conversation
Yeah.
because I think a
That's
lot
my
of people are
dream.
looking into that, you
Yeah,
know?
that's definitely my dream. And Veronica mentioned that they have a YouTube channel. They do. They also have a Facebook group as well. And I
Mm,
will find the link and drop it in the chat
do.
after the episode, just so people can kind of like jump in. I think it's just women in the group, Black women. I believe it might be men in there, but I don't know. So don't quote me, y'all. Um,
Yeah. You see a lot of Black women that are doing that, just getting up and moving and just going somewhere and
yeah,
having a better quality of life, living more simply. Racism is everywhere. So I know people be like, well, you're going to leave and you're still going to have racism, but it's not to the same extent. And also, I think sometimes people don't, not always, but in a lot of ways, if you're American, that trumps your race because as an American, you have money and class in a lot of these places because everybody kind of is brown. Class, a lot of times, and money outweighs race. You
yeah,
still gonna have racism because they didn't want to sell Oprah a pocketbook and all that other stuff. So you're gonna still have some people that are going to mistreat you. They're still anti-Blackness, but anti-Blackness is pretty much everywhere. I think that the biggest thing is us creating environments where we can thrive, not just survive. Like somebody said, America feels like a sunken place, and it really does. It just feels like the energy, the vibe, everything is off. Oh, Panama and Costa Rica. Yeah, it is. It's just like
so I'm
all
crying.
know it. We're just like blah, but it's almost
Yeah,
like we don't know what to do. And I think the more that we have the conversations, and it'll open up like people's minds to well, what are the possibilities?
yeah,
If it's not that, maybe it's something else that sparks. So I love to have these kind of conversations, and we start to think without limits. We've been taught to think with limitation. And that's really where we get stuck because it's like, this is what you're supposed to be. This is what professionalism looks like. It's you can't say this and that. And I'm just like, I'm gonna say anything because that's what they do. And we have been trained to be polite, to respect people that don't respect us, and it's not fair. So yeah,
yeah.
I saw that too. The top 10 places where Black people are. I think there was a TikTok video about it recently too. Did you post that? I think you posted it, didn't you? Wasn't there
I
a video?
posted something yesterday, but it wasn't this one that has the 10 places. I think it was like 5 or 6 places on my list.
Gosh,
But yeah, I we gotta have the conversation.
yes. If I could, I'm telling you right now, if I could live in another country like Colombia, if I could go to Mexico, if I could live somewhere in the Caribbean, even in like west coast of Africa, anywhere else but here, and have like a lifestyle where I could just live simply, I would be all over it because
Yeah.
it's the American dream and what we consider to be like the lifestyle that we want to have. I think for most Black folk, it's just not attainable. And even when we get it, it's just not worth the hassle and the stress that comes along with it, you know?
Yeah, that's so interesting. I remember, and I know that we are way over time, so I want to respect your time. You good?
I'm
Yeah.
fine. I'm enjoying the conversation. Somebody else said Panama and Costa Rica. You had Costa
Yes.
Rica too, didn't you?
Costa
With
Rica
your
was on the list, and I actually was in Costa Rica last year in November, and it was
like
beautiful.
it?
I loved it. Um,
Really?
but I was gonna say that I remember when I was younger, like when I first graduated from undergrad, my first job was an assistant store manager at Walmart, and I was
Mm,
making $42,000 a year. Girl, I thought
girl,
I was
how
rich,
many
honey.
titles did you get? 42?
I thought
Really?
I was rich, and it was more money than anyone in my family had ever made. And I had to leave Walmart because, the floor is concrete. I was having problems with my back and my knees and my feet. So then I ended up going to another job where they actually told me in the interview, they're paying you that much? Oh, we only pay this much. And it was like $10,000 less than what I was making at Walmart. So go from making 42,000 to 32,000. And I feel like over the years, I have chased the dollar. I
Same.
have gone wherever the money is. I have moved multiple times. I'm from Virginia. I've lived in Michigan, Colorado, California, and I've been in Texas since 2019 because I go where the coin is. And even after, even at this point and being able to make it to multiple six figures, I'm just not like, it's just not enough. Like, not
It's
the
never
money,
enough.
but it's not enough in terms of, like, I'm constantly questioning,
Yeah.
what is it that I should be doing right
Same.
now? Like, it is not. I
Yeah.
thought that what I needed was money,
Money.
but
Yeah.
actually it's not what I need. So what else is it to this life other than making a certain amount of money? And I realized that until you make it to like a certain point, it's not gonna make sense. I know that it's not everybody's story,
Yeah.
but it's so hard to like think about the fact that at one point all I cared about was I need to make more money. And now I'm like, no, I need more peace.
Thank
Like
you.
at some point it's like, no, like the money doesn't matter anymore. I need the peace.
And the thing is, I think a lot of times people feel like the money will bring them peace. They feel like, well, once my bills are paid, I'll feel fine. But then there's stress that's coming from other things that are associated with making more money. So it's like somebody said, refund on the degrees. Yeah,
Me
you
too.
struggle. Three. So I got so much degrees. I don't even list them anymore because I'm just like, who cares? It's just this idea of you're always chasing that next thing. And I think for a lot of us, it's just we're emotionally, we need to feel comfortable. And a lot of us have never felt that. So we're chasing some elusive feeling of it's almost like I want to feel like I'm working at, remember in Boomerang? Where it was like Eddie Murphy ran that agency or whatever, and it was just so blackety black, black. It's like if I was gonna work, I would want to work in an environment where I feel as though I'm safe, I'm
Yeah.
secure, I can be myself. And most of us know, even in a black environment like that, it's still not going to be security because we still are not typically in control. So I think for a lot of us, that's why the lure of entrepreneurship is so it pulls us so much because we just want to be the
Mhm.
captain of our own ship. We want to have control of our own destiny, and even if that sometimes means we make less, we just don't want that pressure because our whole life is pressure. And I think sometimes people
Yeah.
it goes back to what you said about the soft life. I think people misunderstand what I say, protecting my peace or the soft life, because that was the original question you asked me. Does that mean checking out? And I think for a lot of us, it has been we've been indoctrinated to believe that's what it means. If you want to rest, well, what you want to rest for, girl? You better go get that money, collect, you secure that bag. But for a
Yeah.
lot of us, it's like, okay, but now that I've done that, now I'm able to get
Now what?
$10,000 in this day or this week or this gig. Okay, great. I'm still not feeling fulfilled inside. There's still something that's missing. And I think it's weird because it goes against what we were told as kids, like our parents didn't have. So they wanted us to go out there and chase that money. You better get that degree, girl. You better go back to grad school. You better go get you a nice house. But once they didn't have it, so they wanted it for us. So I get it. And they wanted us to have security. but it still doesn't bring you security. You still get in your car and you can still get pulled over and you'll be dead, because they say you look like you were going to pull out a gun. Whatever it is, we're still not feeling that sense of peace at our core. And I think a lot of that is the trauma that we're going through and working on healing that, like you said, by having, like, you have your retreats where you can just go along and just be at peace. And, like, oh my gosh, that's so true. The ancestors want us to rest. We have been running on empty for generations, and it is time for us to rest. We basically built the Western hemisphere. There's no doubt about it.
Mhm.
All over social media, you're seeing people, finally African leaders, saying all they do is loot. They come here and just they basically set up shop, set up all those. When we was learning in school about Hotel Rwanda, why did all these things happen? Just look at the big bad bullies. That's why this stuff happens. Malcolm X said they'll pay one of us to kill one of us so they could say it was one of us. And that's what they did.
Mm.
Why you see the main people saying no for the genocide with they hand, because we're always the face of something negative. Don't We can't be the face of something good. God forbid. We have to be on the front line. And I love that somebody said black women are the glitch in the matrix. That's why they hate us so much. Because a black woman will tell you her bias. She don't care. I think that's a lot of sometimes where the jealousy comes from with white women, why we're the victim of microaggressions. Because we are not afraid. And they was indoctrinated to be servile. We were not. Our mom told us, girl, don't let that man, blah, blah, blah. And now they say, well, that mean you're going to be alone. If that mean I'm going to be alone, I'm going to just be alone then, honey, because I'm not going to be abused. And I think the patriarchy is a lot of what has instilled that in us as a community too, where we are doing things that hurt ourselves. And I think by, like you said, living a soft life, traveling the world, resting when you need rather than prioritizing that next pay bump, that's really what we need to do. We need to, as she said, the ancestors want us to rest. We need to make sure that we're prioritizing our mental health, because if it's up to them, we'll be unaliving ourselves, because that's what's happening at the highest rates. Our young people are under extreme duress, and we have to teach them better. We don't. Dick Gregory said this, comedian, but also a great civil rights advocate, and he said, "Don't tell the young people to work twice as hard." And that's what we were taught, and now we're exhausted. There's a collective exhaustion. I don't talk to a black person and get on a Zoom and they just looking like they just done been mollywopped because they are tired. Nobody gets on there all chipper because we're going through collectively and looking around and saying, so it's not just me. Everybody that I see around me on the news, on social media, in my family, we're all struggling. It's just we never were saying anything. And
Yeah.
since George Floyd came along and we've seen a little spark of hope that just got burnt out like Survivor. You know how they making the fire? They look like the fire gonna burn. It's like, wah, wah, you lost fire making challenge. That's what happened. We were like,
Yeah.
oh man, we thought it was gonna be a blaze, and now it's nothing. So now we done got in a real funk because we like, oh, so y'all knew better. Y'all just wasn't trying to do better. So y'all just like the cheating boyfriend. It don't matter what you do, baby. Dress up on Valentine's Day, cook him dinner, pay all the bills. He's still gonna cheat. It
Mm.
doesn't matter if somebody has a propensity to be a bad person. The more actually that you do and acquiesce and work with them, that's actually the worse they treat you. Because they're like, oh, you want to let me run over you? Let me run over you back up and run over you a little bit more since you like it so much. So
Mhm.
we have to put our stake in the ground. So that as black women too, you see a lot of us, we tired. We not with the shits no more. We like, oh, okay, you know what? Okay, we gonna show you. I could show you better, I could tell you. And that's where we're at now. When black women get fed up, it's a problem. And I think that's really where we're at. It's us really looking at ourselves and saying, we're not made for this. We're leaders, but we don't have to run a marathon when we could be strolling very nicely in our little kitten heels. We shouldn't have to be going through all this because we're better than that. And I think and that's work smarter, not harder. That's really what it boils down to. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely the idea of, my ultimate goal is for my job to be my side hustle and for my side hustle to be my full time, what I do, but what I love. Not being under somebody else's rules and having to think about, oh, what happens if I get fired? What's the next opportunity? What's the next pay bump? What can I do to get promoted? All these things that we already know we're more than worthy of having, but it's so much harder for us to get them. And entrepreneurship is hard too, because we've talked about that. It is difficult,
Sure.
but I
Oh,
would
me
rather
too.
work hard for myself than work hard to make somebody
The
else rich. I
stress.
know that. Yeah.
The stress. I'd be wanting to quit every day,
You,
every
hon-
single day.
honey, I have to stir my mind to the idea that, this is not my company. This my kids not gonna take over the board here. They doing stuff wrong. I'd be like, well, just let me know what y'all need. It was a time I used to be like, well, that ain't gonna work, blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, you know what, Liz, just be quiet. Stay on mute. When they need you, they'll let you know. You'll get an email of what needs to get done.
Yeah.
Because we take stuff way too serious, and these people sleeping soundly in their bed while we walking back and forth trying to save the whole country.
And to be clear, when I said that I was talking about entrepreneurship, like I'd be wanting to quit every
Yes,
day because
yes,
it's hard. It's
entrepreneurship
so
is even
hard.
harder. It definitely is harder. But I think it goes back to like that DNA. I feel as though, especially for Black women, the reason why we always want to be entrepreneurs is we just don't want to be in those environments where we're being told what to do. We don't want to have to
Mhm.
dumb ourselves down or dim our light so you'll feel more comfortable. We don't want to have to like mince our words. We want to be straight up, like this is what it's gonna be. Per my email, we want to do all that stuff, and you cannot do that and survive in corporate America because they not having it. And as spicy as we are, and just how much we just want to shine and be brilliant, corporate America does not deserve us. They just really don't. They do not deserve our magic. And it's like a lot of us is like, you know what I could do? I could just say, take this magic and go somewhere else. Unfortunately, because we haven't had entrepreneurship for a lot of us generationally, we haven't seen that. We have not had the resources in our communities. A lot of us are learning on the fly. We don't have communities of support, which is why I'm big on that, like what you do and the stuff that I'm trying to do. We need to be sharing information amongst each other, which is what they do. They don't just sit around and talk about how to include us in the equation. I know y'all don't think
Mhm.
that, right? Y'all think they sit around like, how can we get Black people more involved? Y'all have some opportunities for them? No. So what we need to be doing is collaborating amongst each other. And it doesn't mean we have to all go and visit together because I know that's complicated too, and it always will be. But I think what it does mean is that we have to have open conversations. We have to tell people about the things that you say, prioritizing mental health, resting, all the things that we're learning as we go along. It would be kind of like irresponsible of us not to share and not to tell people this is what we're thinking, this is what we're seeing, this is how, and the involuntary relocation to demonstrate the benefit of slavery. I honestly feel like, and here's the weird thing, it goes back to being in an abusive relationship. I honestly feel like if they made a carbon copy of America and all the Black people went there, they would be like swimming over there or flying over there or taking a paddle boat over there to see what we were doing. It's almost like there's this it's a pathology. There's a sense of we are a commodity. There are things that we bring, the value that we have always brought. It's valued from the sense of being commodified, but not valued in terms of us as our humanity, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. It's like we bring so much. There's probably nothing that we don't do to the pinnacle of excellence, but we're treated as though we're the dregs of society, like we're the worst. And I think that type of gaslighting, it's very mentally abusive, and when people are acting like they don't know what's going on, and even people that say they're allies are acting like, well, I don't understand that. For me, I just don't have the patience for that. And I think that's why I stopped with a lot of the type of advocacy work I was doing in DEI and stuff like that, because I feel like it's this willful ignorance, it's the pathology of making it seem like, yeah, they are obsessed. I often say that. There is this, and the psychology for me, it escapes me because obviously I haven't studied it. I probably will at some point, but it almost reminds me of that Oedipus. It's almost like, you want to be mothered, but you want to be, left alone, but it reminds me of the relationship I have with my kids. It's like, you want me to be your mom, but now you want to be independent and make decisions, but the decision you're making is dumb. Now you come back to me to get me to fix it, but now you lashing at me and you angry at me because I know the answer. It's this really weird combination of, wanting to be your lover, but also wanting to be your mom, and also, and it's like, that's why we're so caricatured, the Jezebel, like this insatiable, lustful hypersexualization that Black women get. our bodies always being obsessed about, and a lot of things, our sexual life being obsessed about. I'm like, I know more about Fannie Willis' bedroom than I know about my anything in this world. There's
Girl.
just this whole idea of, as Black women, we're carrying so many of these stereotypes because society has pushed them on us, on those things on us, not because we wanted them. And then we have to deal with the ramifications of that. And a lot of times, those things that we're dealing with, it is nothing positive for us. It does not help us. It does not do anything other than degrade us. But we're supposed to just take the high road and just deal with it. And I think a lot of us are just tired of it. It's like we're seeing it all stack up, this whole mountain of evidence, and all we see is people that are still not only now just saying they don't see it, now they're like, oh, I see it. And I think that means you're racist. So you keep bringing it up. So I'm going to go ahead and ban you from trying to point that out because that's a racist thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
Like,
Are you making us feel bad?
you're making me feel bad. Now you were racist because you're against me. It's like, that's kind of like not how that works, but it reminds me of
Right.
talking to my children. It's like I'm rationalizing with something that I shouldn't have to
No
explain.
logic. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you were raised better, and I'm up here explaining why you can't grab up toys in Walgreens and try to walk out with them like you're not supposed to put that back. And it's this silly little stuff that you're doing with people that really need to know better. And that alienation is real because you're going into spaces where you're the only one that look like you, and you're having this internal dialogue. Am I the only one that's seeing this? Because what's happening right now, this should not be happening. These people are tripping. Like, oh my gosh, I got to call my homegirl when I get off work. This is crazy. I'm gonna call my mom because I don't know. I'm about to quit this place because these people have lost their mind. These are the things, and we have to still perform on the job after we've done all those mental computations to figure out how to not get fired and snap on everybody. It's just too much. And that's why the conversation needs to be had. Because if once I started having conversations and I realized a lot of other Black women were feeling the same way, just even if it wasn't going to change and knowing that other people were going through it too, I was like, well, at least I'm not crazy. That
Yeah.
I could check,
Yeah.
check that off the list. And it's not just me being, that they'll tell you, oversensitive. No, it's not that, because
Yeah.
nobody could deal with that and still not come out hard on the harmed on the other side. And the professional is gaslighting. Professionalism is whoever is in charge gets to say the rules. When I worked in addiction treatment, professional was a lot of the managers had tattoos, sleeved, they would show their ears were gauged, nose piercing, color hair, long hair. They're the manager. So there's nothing unprofessional about that. But if you went into JP Morgan, they're not going to say that's professional because the manager got on a button down and a tie and a business suit. So whoever make the rules, but usually we're not the ones making the rules. So that's why. And if we are making the rules, we making them to appease massa because we know we got to keep our job. That's how the system perpetuates itself. It's like what
Yeah.
John Graham talked about. He talks about professionalism being weaponized too. It's like a plantation system. So you're not going to get to the top. You'll be the overseer, or you'll be in the big house like in Django. You'll be that, but you're not going to get to the top. And if you are at the top, you'll be a puppet. Minister Farrakhan said this about, they asked him how he felt about Obama. He said, I feel good about him. He's a smart young man, but he still is in the seat. And if you're in the seat, you have to do as you're told. It's not rocket science. I mean, this is how it works. If we could get in there and disrupt things, they wouldn't let us in there. They ain't gonna let me in there, right? Because they're not gonna let you in there if you're gonna disrupt things. They'll give you a little something just so that you could vote and make yourself feel good so that you don't overthrow, or try to rebel. Just like the slave rebellions. They would give us a little something, something, some Christmas dinner, different things just to incentivize you so that you don't uprise. But at the end of the day, you're not going to get free. And if you try to get free, you're going to get caught or get killed. And that's what happens now. If you get to the top, they pull you down. Oh, you plagiarized in 1997? Keep in mind, I graduated undergrad in 1997. So they pulled this lady half my lifetime ago. That's when they said the lady plagiarized, and pulled her down because of that plagiarism.
Yeah.
That is not even academically. Most people, just from being in higher ed for 20 years, that isn't even something that holds water 9 times out of 10. And I believe what you're saying makes a lot of sense, Asha. If Black women put down arms, this country would fall to pieces. And they know it, and that's why they coming for us now, because it's almost like, again, abusive relationship. When that person start to see that you waking up, they don't turn down the heat. they turn up the heat. You would think, oh, starting to see that I'm cheating, or they start to see that I'm doing wrong. So let me be nice to them. They'll be nice for a couple days. DEI. Let's make you think that I'm a change. Then send you to the spa, get your nails done, then bought some flowers. Girl, he not gonna cheat no more. He done turned over a new leaf. Watch it about 6 weeks when you go right back and actually get worse than what he was before. This is what's happening right now. The DEI backlash is just after they done gaslit you, rolled you in. Don't get too ahead of yourself. You got your little flowers and stuff. Don't think I'm gonna stop cheating because I'm gonna still be cheating. And that's what we know what abuse
Yes.
looks like. But what we do is now we saying, well, this is a middle-aged white man, or these are respectable white people, and they say they don't see color, and they say they need more time to get it done. Baby, it don't take that long. We got people going to Mars right now. We got
Yes.
the artificial intelligence writing better than a regular person. It's pulling all the brains from across the internet, but we can't figure out how to pay me because my skin is a tan.
Because if they
It's
wanted
like,
to, they would. They
if they
would
wanted
do
to,
it.
they would. Girl, that is my
Mm.
mantra for the rest of 2024. Because people got to get their head out the sand and really come to terms with what is happening. The more that we come to terms with it, then it won't seem, it's almost like when you start to say something and then it's like, oh, that's just, yeah, we're not going to fall for that. We're not falling for it. And the more that you say it, the more it becomes real. The more
Yeah.
that you can just acknowledge it and talk about it, then it's just like when the man be cheating and then you start to tell your girlfriends, and the more you talking about it, they looking at you like, girl, so you was dealing with that. What you been doing this whole time? Like, what? The more that we do that, then we don't normalize things that are
Yeah.
harmful, because they like to isolate you. Somebody say alienate. So now you in that place and you like, shit, there's something wrong with me. I got to go fix myself. This man cheating. Let me go get some Botox and some something so I can entice him back because there's something wrong with me. Ain't nothing wrong with you, baby. You dealing with a pathological psychopathic person. So there's nothing we can do. It doesn't matter how much degrees we got. And I'm telling you, the was talking about how sisters get sexually harassed. Oh, they be harassing. And that's why I said it's an Oedipus thing to it as well. It's a push and pull, and we see it a lot. The psychology of it, I really want to study that sometime, because we are victims of misogyny, where we are. Um, I've been yelled at by white men on the job. I've been disrespected. A lot of that I've seen and
Mhm.
heard of other people talking about sexual harassment. Thank God I haven't had that, because I probably would have caught a charge, but none, maybe not. Because the funny thing is, it's funny how you'll say if something happened, what you would do or what you won't do. I used to say that about
Yes.
domestic violence. Oh, if a man try to put
Mhm.
hands on me, blah, blah, blah. You don't know what, that'll never happen to me. No,
Yeah.
because the thing about the human body, we are conditioned to save ourselves. So we're going to go into fight, flight, freeze. We're going to do whatever we have to do to survive. And sometimes that is freeze. Sometimes that is what would happen with me with a lot of my trauma. I don't even remember it because my brain's like, oh no, baby, that's too much. Let's push that to the side so you can keep moving forward. Because if you think about that, you ain't going to be able to. So the body does so many things. And I think we have normalized trauma to the point where when we're getting harassed by these white men and white women, because they're the biggest offenders when it comes to microaggressions, when we think about statistically, when they do surveys, most white women are the ones that are committing a lot of these microaggressions. They're the ones that's in the HR. They're the main ones that are teachers. When we think about the places of harm, they're really the main ones that are actually executing what the men are doing in law enforcement and in the legal system and everything else, where they dominate also. So there's a lot that's happening strategically, and they're doing it strategically, basically like somebody said, on autopilot, and we're sitting here like, doo, 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 it's just happening, so let's meet them where they are, give them some more resources. No, you're not getting no more resources. Go to the library like I used to and look through the card catalog. If you can't find resources, go on google.com. I'm not giving you any more resources. You need to look it up yourself. And when I talk now, I mostly talk about Black liberation. That's why I
Yeah.
love the title. I love talking about Black liberation. I love talking about how we can liberate ourselves. I love talking about how we can love on ourselves, how we can have these kind of frank conversations that sometimes don't get had. We need to be free to talk the same way we talk around each other when we're hanging out at each other's house or go to dinner. Like when we were talking in Austin when we went out to dinner with Kurt, and we were just having a normal conversation. These are the conversations that need to be had in the public so that everybody can see. See, lightning didn't strike me. I said white people racist, nothing happened. I didn't get carried up to the rapture because I told the truth. We could tell the truth. They're not exempt from having to follow the rules like this, like we supposed to do. But they want to set the rule and then break the rule, just like we're doing right now in Palestine. Oh, it's a rule, but not for this particular situation. We know
Mhm.
why. It just depends on who you're talking about. And Nelson Mandela said that I can't trust a man that deals in the same situation. It's a this rule for this person and this rule for that person. He said that person not fit to be a leader. And that's the truth. If I'm dealing with you square, I'm gonna deal with everybody the same way. I'm not deviating from that because that's just my modus operandi. But when you got somebody that has no morals, no ethics, no professionalism, no character, they're gonna talk one way, talk behind your back, go back, cut aside, deal, steal, kill, manipulate, gaslight, because there's no ethics, there's no morals. They don't do anything other than what suits them in that moment. So if they gotta lie to you,
Mhm.
okay, I lied to you. So
Still kill and
feel
destroy.
free. That is
Still
literally their they have always been that way. And it's not the thing about a stereotype or when you're being racist, you're saying something that has no basis in reality. Like when people are like, Black people are blah, blah, blah. And it becomes this archetype, it becomes this thing that's bigger than us. Historically speaking, this is what has happened. What has happened is that white folk, European colonialism, the imperialism, the greed, the capitalistic drive to just conquer has created this system, and Black folk have just been the cogs in the wheel of what has been happening, and we're tired. We don't want that for ourselves. We don't just want to chug along and then the minute we don't serve the system, pull us out, throw us to the side, or we get gunned down, or we get burnt out, or whatever happens, but we're not appreciated in the system and we're not treated as though we are even valuable in this system.
yeah.
So that's why a lot of us are finding value elsewhere, whether that's in entrepreneurship, whether it's leaving the country and going elsewhere. I think that's why we have to make sure that we have these types of conversation because we want to open up our imagination. Everything that's happening right now, somebody came up with it. I think sometimes people feel like, well, this is just the way that it is. No, things don't just become something. Somebody has to speak it out and then they make the action to make it happen. So
Mhm.
somebody said we're going to have a democracy. Keep in mind, it wasn't a democracy, it's an oligarchy, but whatever they wanted to call it, they had to call it that and then create. The thing with Black folk is because we've not had the ability, the autonomy to create, a lot of times we feel like we have to live in this silly structure that they've created as if this is the best thing that's ever come. And if you say it's bad, oh, you speaking bad. So, and I mean, so what? I'm not beholden to speak good about something when I'm looking at it objectively and it's dumb. I'm not going to sit here and pretend. That's like the emperor new clothes. Everybody pretending the emperor not naked because they don't want the emperor to be mad. He's naked. You up here talking about his clothes looks good. That's what we doing, sitting around. Oh yeah, I like having to work 40 hours, commute, hour back and forth, not get paid what they get paid. If I give them my resume, I got to put my initial on there so they don't know I'm Black. Go in there, code switch. Oh, guys, I'm here for the interview. I'm so glad to be here. I love doing all that. No, we don't. Why would we say we want to do all that? Like we have to start being talking plain and being like, no, that the same stuff we say around the dinner table. The funny thing is, though, at least we have the bravery, or the thing is, it will hurt us to tell the truth. They there's no consequences whether they tell the truth or not, but they choose to lie. They behind the dinner table talk about how Black people lazy or whatever they saying, because we will never have access to that conversation. But they won't come in our face and say that. I would rather you tell me to my face. That's how I grew up. If you saying something, just say it. Jump at it and say it to me. What they'll say is, I don't see color. But you go to HR and say, oh, make sure you pay her 42, but such and such that has my same position. They got paid at 50. And the only difference is our skin color. Or maybe that person is less qualified than me. So this is why they're able to do what they do, because we don't question it. We
Yeah.
just say, that's just our lot in life, that we got to meet them where they are and explain to them we're just as excellent. It's what our parents always do. Get in there, prove it to them, prove that you're just as excellent. We more excellent, and they still don't care. You know what they're saying now? Black women, we the most educated demographic. Now they're saying it don't really matter if you have a degree. Just come in and prove yourself. just, college degree. We can just do certificates, and that's what we say in education. Now we ain't even really selling bachelor's degree anymore. Now we're selling an associate degree. It's all the money. It is not about the prestige. We're chasing the prestige because we think that'll make them treat us better. The income pay gap for Black women is biggest if you have advanced degrees. So if you have a doctorate, your pay, the amount that you're supposed to get paid compared to a white man, actually that amount, the disparity is actually biggest when you have most education,
Mm.
because they don't want you to be educated. They don't want us to feel as though they don't want to feel as though they don't know something, and we know it, which is why we get pushback in meetings, why we get mistreated, the microaggressions and things like that. We have a particular role in society, and if we try to exceed that role, we will be pulled back from that because that's not where they want us to be. And the quicker we come to that realization, the more that we will focus on protecting our peace, the more they'll say, I don't need to be. Well, I honestly go in my office and I don't care if you validate me or don't validate me. I don't care if you promote me or don't promote me. I promote myself outside of here. This is my job. My
Yes.
work is outside of here. So I could pay me
Yes.
a paycheck. I get my paycheck every 2 weeks, but my real work is when I'm talking to Black women, having conversations like this. That is my work. That job is just what keep the lights on, my little, whatever I need over my head. But we have to really think about the rules of engagement. And yeah, I think for me, when I think about rules of engagement, like John Graham talks about plantation theory. In my book, I'm Not Yelling, I talk about a lot of the same things. The idea that these systems were not made for us. The quicker that we go in and look at the system as when we talk rules of engagement, yeah, you in a war zone. So you just need to take it that way. There's a great coach, career coach, and business coach, Kanika Tolver, and she talks about, and she's very big on Twitter. She does like a lot of Twitter spaces. I actually interviewed her for Ebony, and I quoted her in my book. And one of the things she talks about is that your job need to be not your forever, not your husband. Your job is like a friend with benefit. That's how you treat it. You don't treat it like, oh, I'm in love with you. Oh my God, because they gaslighting you. They love bombing you. Come in, you work. It seems like it's going to be a great place, and it's back to the BS, just like all them other places you've been at. So you go in looking like, just look at it like a trick. Look at it like your sugar daddy. Look at it like
The
your friend with
sugar
benefits,
daddy.
whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
But it's something that is just there. You're not in love. You're not in like. They're not your, as Jessica Farm would say, they're not your family. All they are is a source of income. So whatever you need to do to reframe, I don't tell them my business. I don't get into my personal life. I tell y'all my personal life. But what is it gonna edify me to go in there and be trying to be friendly and be everybody's best friend? It doesn't matter whether you their best friend or you looking sad and looking like, oh, why you not smiling? Either way, you are a threat. Your presence is a threat. So I think us navigating really goes back to the idea of, why is this important? Like, what is this important to you more than what we should allocate that amount of importance to it? And I think the amount of importance we allocated to it should also reflect the importance that is allocated to me. If you're giving me the bare minimum on my salary and I should have been got promoted, I'm doing the work that you paid me for, because that's
Mm.
what you're supposed to do. You ain't supposed to be going jumping above and beyond. If all of our parents, our moms used to tell us, the guy not going to date you if you get the milk for free, and we never believed that. We like, well, if I give him a little bit of milk, then probably he will marry me. That's not how it works. And it's the same thing in corporate America. The more you give, the more they take. So you
Yes.
start giving milk, then you give him in your rent money, then you let him borrow your car. Next thing you got a fuckboy in your hands, and you wonder how it happened because you kept giving. And that's
Yeah.
what happened at work. What that they the supreme fuck boy, because they will take and take and take and take and take and take, and you keep giving like, oh, I'm gonna get promoted from side chick status to wifey status. No, you won't. And if you do, you're still gonna get cheated on, because that's how it works. You'll be out the door quicker than if something happened on your job, you get hurt tonight, they post your job tomorrow, because it's not your family. This is why we get tripped up, because we going in there like, oh, they're my friends. They're gonna give me this promotion. They're gonna give me this raise. And then when you don't get it, you hurt. And then you go back to grad school and try to get you another master's degree. No, sis,
You
it is
need
nothing
another
to do with
master's degree.
you.
Yeah.
Two personas, the code switching, the pacifying people. I got done with that stuff because I said My oh, thank you. See, I ordered last week. My mental health couldn't take it. I was like, you know what? It's a pandemic, people dying all over. I need to just be myself. I my kids running around being bad. I was spending like $300 a month on Robux because they wouldn't be quiet while I was on these Zoom calls. I said, you know what? They're gonna get me in a head wrap with no makeup on my face. I just got up and got some coffee, got the kids to school. Like, I don't have time. And I think after all that, I just didn't want to go back to doing that, to try to fit into a box that wasn't designed for me. The long-term impact is very degraded mental health. I talk about it in my book, Protecting My Peace. About half, the first half of the book is about our mental health and how our mental health and well being is severely affected by these toxic work environments. I talk about how Black women are more prone to major depressive disorder, that a lot of times we're suffering anxiety, we're suffering from PTSD. We need to rest, we need to heal, but society doesn't give us the time to do that. We're constantly on the run, we're constantly chasing accolades. We're not appreciated in the workplace, we're not appreciated in media, we don't have the representation for us to feel good about ourselves. And that actually degrades our mental health as well. When your mental health is degraded, then your physical health also is degraded because you have inflammation, you have stress. So we have
Mhm.
higher levels of lupus, autoimmune disease, heart disease, high
Yeah.
blood pressure, anything that you could think of. And Muhammad, that was a great question. The long-term effects are dire. And that is why Crystle started out the show. And we're going to wrap up because we've been talking for like ever. But Crystle started out by saying, we are being killed. Black women are being killed. And when we say that, we're not exaggerating. What we're talking
Yeah.
about is majorly that mental health. If you're in these toxic work environments and your mental health is degraded because you're dealing with the microaggressions and the code switching and the constantly feeling under pressure and not having mentor and not making what you're supposed to make and not getting promoted, all that swirl of everything you got to do. And then you still got to exceed at your job so that you can just be there, because if you don't exceed, you're going to be the first one out the door because that's how it works. Yeah, that's going to affect your mental health. And then blood pressure is high. You're maybe not eating the way that you're supposed to eat. You don't have time to exercise. You're overstressed. All these things compound to this perfect storm of somebody dying from heart disease at an early age, somebody unaliving themselves, somebody having to deal with high blood pressure, hypertension, any stress related migraines. There's so many things that lead people to having debilitating mental health illness. There's a lot of high levels of, like I said, the PTSD, anxiety, the mood disorders. All that comes with chemicals in your brain. When someone has bipolar disorder, that typically is triggered by trauma. So the chemicals
Mhm.
in your brain, the chemicals in your brain start to accommodate based on what's happened to you, and then you can't really, you can't recover from that. Now you have to go into a process of trying to heal, but you can't really heal, like somebody said, because you're constantly getting triggered. So it becomes this self-fulfilling, like you talked about earlier, Crystle. You're on this treadmill of constantly being in trauma and you just can't get out of it. And your question was such a good one about how do you get out of it. And I think the first part is acknowledging what's happening. If you acknowledge what's happening, then at least you can start to try to address it and heal from it. But I think a lot of us are just in denial. We're like, well, this is just what I gotta keep doing it. Like, this is what everybody tells me to do. And we literally are playing into this role. Toni Morrison said it, "I'm not a victim." And I felt some kind of way. I'm like, but we are victims. Like, we're being victimized. But what she was saying was, I'm going to empower myself. Yeah, we're being victimized, but we don't have to be victims. And that's really what that meant when she said that. It's the sense that even though we're being victimized, we're being attacked, and we can see it. Like, it's not us imagining things. We are being attacked. We still can empower ourselves to say, they're attacking me because they're afraid of my potential. And this is how white rage has always functioned. It's been studied by Dr. Carol Anderson. Post-traumatic slave syndrome has been studied by Joy DeGruy. And what happens is our mindset has to change. We cannot wait for their mindset to change because their mindset has not changed in hundreds of years. It may not change for hundreds of years or ever.
Exactly.
So if we're not willing to change, we have to change the way that we look at it. It doesn't absolve them. It doesn't mean that we're not holding them accountable. We still hold them accountable. We still call them out. We can still let them know what they're doing is wrong, but not to expect the behavior to change. It is for us to just be able to get it off our chest, just like I do at therapy. Hey, this is what's happening to me,
Yes.
but I'm not going to ruminate about it. If I ruminate about it, it's not going to change. Just staying in that, constantly thinking about, thank you for that treadmill of trauma. I need to start writing these down. I'm going to come back in the comments and write some of these down so I can incorporate these. Y'all don't sue me, please. I did not say it right. Yeah. So yeah, and that's really what we have to start thinking about. Having the conversations like a normal conversation, not anything to be embarrassed about or ashamed about. We don't own the shame. We didn't do any of this stuff. And when the people are like, well, I didn't own slaves, okay. And like I didn't ask for any of this trauma either, but I have it. So we have to acknowledge actually what's happened. And I think playing into people's like, well, you're making me feel bad, but you don't care that my kids feel bad, that they don't know like their own origin. And y'all making it up that they were on like a foreign exchange student program. That's where our generations came from. Like, stop it. Like, we have to
Yeah.
be able to talk about the reality so that we can heal. And like Clarissa said, it is definitely true that we have the most attacks because it's that intersectionality. It's race and gender. They're attacking their own women too. But if you have a white woman, she has the privilege of her skin color that gives her some protection, which is why you see that they're not as scared as we are. They do still have that ability to say, well, as a
Mhm.
white woman, they're still going to be above us, which is why you don't see as many white women really engaged in trying to deconstruct the system or liberate us. They're not trying to liberate themselves, so they ain't going to liberate you. They can't even liberate themselves from their own husband. Somebody's husband went to the Supreme Court and voted to outlaw abortion. He couldn't have came back to my house. But that's how it goes. You have a patriarchy that has trained women to be subservient, and then we all got to fall in line under that. So yeah, black men are going to have a little bit more oomph because they got that maleness. So a man gonna just still deal with the man the same way they're gonna deal with them, even though race. But that's why a lot of times weapons comes into play because it's like, oh, the big bad black man, I was afraid for my life. And now you have somebody riddled with 96 bullets and people saying, well, he shot first. So 96 bullets later, it's like what were you trying to was it the 97th one was like the 96th one was a killer shot? Like why did that happen?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I think us being a little bit more pragmatic, and I hate to laugh about it because it sounds like I'm not taking it seriously, but the thing is we've been taught to internalize stuff that's lies. So we have to start normalizing the truth. We have to look at it like this is just what it is. It's not something that we want. It's not something that we made, but we have to just learn from it and grow from it so that we can give you or give ourselves the opportunity to have that peace of mind that we're looking for. Like somebody said, that mental health and being able to be emotionally stable, that's more important than any title, more important than any money. You can chase money, but if you don't have your health, then you have nothing. So that's why I love that you're doing your retreats and everything else because it prioritizes Black women to say, hey, you deserve to take time, you deserve to rest, you deserve to heal. Yeah, and that is the truth. We shouldn't have to be constantly just under pressure. That's not a life. And somebody said this earlier. That's not what our ancestors would have wanted for us.
Yeah.
So we got to live like that.
Yes, our ancestors did not want us to suffer. They didn't suffer so we could suffer too.
Mm-mm.
Um, and thank you so much because I often have a really hard time talking about the things that I do. So I appreciate you bringing up the retreat multiple times during
Yes,
this
I keep trying to
conversation.
say, check out the retreat. I was supposed to go that one year and I was in so much trouble. I was afraid to get on the plane. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awful. But I have to join you too because this is what we need. Black women need to come together, unite, heal, love on each other, amplify each other, make sure we support each other. There's more than enough for all of us to amplify and help each other and grow together. So I'm always a big one of giving women their flowers, Black women their flowers, because we deserve that. We deserve to be amplified. And especially when you're doing stuff for the community, which I love that you're saying, you know what? Let's not have a pity party. Let's not sit here and talk about our trauma. Let's talk about how to heal. Let's talk about how to grow. Talk about how to get better. And I think that sometimes we get stuck in that, thinking about the trauma, ruminating about what we should have did better. You did the best you could with the information you had at that time. And that's
Yes.
really, I stand on that. It's like you can't keep blaming yourself, sis. Just move forward and do better. When you know better, you do better. So that's really what I see that you're doing. And I think you're a kindred spirit for me because of the fact that you love on Black women in that way, telling Black women just to take care of themselves, because we're like the foundation of not just our community, we're the foundation of the world. So
Yeah. Yeah. This is my work. This is me doing the work.
yes, it's the work.
Um, yes. And if anyone's listening, whether you're listening live or you're listening to the recording and you're a Black woman, I would love to see you in Cartagena in August, from August 11th through the 15th. That experience is so transformational because it is a intimate experience with just Black women. So the people that you're going to run across where we are, where we're going, when we do Afro-Colombian immersion, it's all going to be Black folks that you're connected to. And the way
And it's,
that
and I didn't realize Colombia has, it was in that video, right? That has one of the biggest populations of Black
yeah,
folk.
there's a lot of Afro-Colombian folks there. Also, there is a town called Palenque. That's the first free African town in the Americas. So it's really important for us to go there and like breathe in the liberation and the freedom while we're there. So it's just exciting. It's exciting work to me.
Yeah.
I know that for a lot of Black women, we feel like, oh, I can't do this and I can't take the time and the kids and this, that, and the third. But you deserve it. You deserve the ability to put the cape down and have a moment to just lay your burdens down, because in that moment it really does disarm you and it regulates your nervous system in a way that most people have not experienced, because you feel free to
Yeah.
show up however it is that you need to show up. You don't have to explain yourself because we all understand, we overstand.
Overstand. That's
Yeah.
it. And
Yes,
somebody
and then
can post the link. She's gonna go back in because we can't post while we're live. We will
yeah.
post a link. I will definitely go in and post a link from my books. So because some people were asking
Mhm.
me some stuff, and I was like, "That's in the book."
Good.
So I will definitely go back and post the link. If you haven't grabbed the book, I'm Not Yelling has been out for like a year. Protecting My Peace is what we're talking about. And Crystle, you were kind enough to invite me to talk about it. You hung out with me in South by Southwest. It was like my road dog. I was like, thank God Crystle came through. It would have been.
And it was so fun because we ran into Dr. Janice,
Yes,
which was
Dr. Jackson
wild
was
because we
there.
weren't expecting to see her. We just saw her in the hallway. Hmm.
Dr. Janice was there. We saw quite a few people from it was a few people from LinkedIn that were kind of like coming up and walking around, which was really cute to see. So yeah, we had such a good time. And that's what it's all about. When we see that, I feel it also encourages us to understand that we're all in this together. Like community is so important. So
Yes.
really nourishing that and just helping to see like there are real people and all of us are just we just want the best for our communities. We want to see us thrive. We want to see us do better. We want to play, even if we can just make small spaces like what you're doing, just create those spaces, those small spaces of healing. Those will grow. The more
Hmm.
that people get involved and the more people understand how important it is to have that time, I feel like a lot of us are returning back to our roots now. So the idea of the Afro-Colombian like immersion, I feel like that is so beautiful because our culture is so rich.
Yeah.
Everything about it is beautiful. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. I really do.
I
Like
have loved this conversation with you, girl.
same. Same.
Well,
This was
obviously,
so
backing in.
this was so fulfilling, and it blessed me too. So yeah, they're asking for you to, yeah, definitely we're gonna drop the link so that you guys can check it out. Definitely follow Crystle, follow myself. Crystle has a lot of great insights, so be sure to keep up with what she's doing and all her different programs and initiatives. And we thank y'all for taking the time to join us and be here. The chat was real active, so that makes it more
Yeah.
fun too, that people were engaged. But let's continue these conversations because it's important that we have these spaces so that everybody can feel understood and heard. The more that we do it, the more it becomes second nature. See, we didn't explode in a puff of smoke because we told the truth. And the more that we tell the truth, and it's like your parents used to say, my mom used to say, tell the truth, shame the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Exactly that.
but we gotta
Exactly
do
that.
that. We gotta.
Well, thank you so much, Liz, for this conversation, for sharing your time with me and sharing your time with everyone else. Also, everyone who was engaged in the chat, if you're listening live or if you're watching the replay, thank you so much for being here. And I'll see you next week. And we'll be talking about purpose as liberation. So we'll see you soon.